Morning tubers, welcome back for another adventure and happy Sunday. So I picked up this Bayou last week, Kawasaki Bayou last week, 300, and it cost me $375. It's time to get it off the truck and figure out if this thing has any life in it, right? I need to figure out how much time and effort to put into it. Or is it just parts? So, I think just off the top of my head, I think those are original tires. So I'm not thinking this thing has a whole load of miles on it. Everything's pretty straight. So I'm not thinking it's banged up too bad either. It might be, yeah, everything looks straight. So I'm thinking this thing was probably adult owned, right? The front of it isn't all torn up or anything. Anyway, I gotta get it off the truck, and from there we'll figure out what to do with it. Okay, on this Bayou, one of the first things you want to do with it, or any other all-terrain vehicle that you put your hot little hands on, you really want it to roll, right? The brakes are dragging, the tires are flat. Let's see if we can't make this a little better. From a distance, it looks like 2 or 3 of these tires hold air. I normally run this thing up to somewhere around 7 or 8, and then when you let it go, it's down at 3. Once again, you just want the tires round, and sometimes your batteries die. After the tires get air into them, the next problem is the brakes are dragging, and because you can lock and unlock the rear differential in this thing, it has a set of brakes on each back wheel, and they're cable brakes. So what you need to do is spin these out, spin the adjusters out. Boy, that one looks stuck pretty good and tightened pretty good. Anyway, I'm going to spin those out. Kellen and I were kidding around, you know. I don't need no stinking brakes, says the guy in the emergency room who just wrecked his all-terrain vehicle, right? Anyway, I might not need back brakes, but I do recommend having some kind of brakes. Spinning these out, not hard to do. This one actually very easy. I kind of grabbed onto it with a 10, but then realized that it's relatively loose, right? And you could just spin these right out. And I have to do the same on that side. The back is loosened up, but it's still not great. I gotta jack it up. I think the fronts might be dragging also. It might loosen up a bit by moving it around. So while I go get the 200S to do that, let's now take a quick look at the seat. So the seat's in pretty nice shape, right? I got a little weather checking here, here. I don't know, cigarette burn. Other than that, it's really in pretty nice shape. I just gave it a quick wipe down with some water. So let's get these patched up. So you guys know this is what I like to use. It's just liquid tape, you know, Harbor Freight, 10-12 bucks, something like that. Of course, I'm gonna attempt to do this left-handed without spilling the whole container, right? Just kind of paint it on. You want to make sure you really catch the edges so that this tearing stops, right? I'm going to do this up, and then I'll show you the result. Okay, here we are. Not really beautiful, but as the stuff dries, it actually settles down a little bit. So hopefully it'll look a little better when it's all done. That also, once it's dry, and really dry is in days worth of dry, lit a little sun on it, you could actually sand it back. So the seat is stable. Hopefully I have enough battery so I can run my pump, and we'll get that thing rolled on up here. So here it is, the project's ready to go. Still doesn't roll very well, so I am going to have to jack it up, pull those front wheels off, and see what's going on. It does have some brake here, and it does seem to be sticking. So I think what's happening is the shoes are obviously clamping the disc, and I don't think the caliper is releasing. Must be semi-seized. One or both of them, they both seem to be dragging. About the motor, if you give it a pull, right, it does have something like compression, but it doesn't seem quite right. So I'm going to pop the carburetor off. We'll put a jump pack on it. We'll do a quick compression test. If the compression isn't great, we'll loosen the valves up and rerun it, then see what it looks like. From what I was told, right, you always got to go back to the beginning. I was told this thing had a spark problem, and they replaced the CDI box back here, and that CDI box does look kind of new. So they did replace the CDI box, right? All well and good, but back to the three things it takes to get an engine running, right? You need a carburetor, carburation, you need a sound engine, and you need decent spark. So the portable CDI box gets me the spark I want, right? We'll do the carburetor hack on it, and we'll see if we can't get it running. But let's start with the compression test to see if this thing has any life left to it. Carburetor's off, and it does look a little charred. And here's the cable, right? By the way, it's seized up. So looks like they replaced the cable and then had a fire. This is the carb. I believe that should be on there. It's a Kevin. There you go. So that's one thing I always look at. The other thing is, normally when you see a new spark plug, that means, I must be troubleshooting a spark problem. So there you go. Anyway, let's spin this over and see what kind of compression we get out of it. So the compression checker is all set up. We don't have a carburetor on it, so we don't have to hold the throttle and choke open. And looks like we're coming in at about 60. That's a tad light. So we're going to check the valves, see what they look like, and then we'll put some oil in the piston if it doesn't come up, and see if that helps. So beneath this cap here, you have the intake valve. Let's get this off. There you go. Try not to lose the hardware. And you check it when the valve is closed. And you can see it just came up. It's a little tight. I'm going to loosen that up, and then we'll check the exhaust. Okay, we took the valve adjustment caps off, not hard, 8 millimeters, spin them right out. And to adjust the valves, you turn over the engine such that the valve is loose, that the rocker is completely up. You release the retaining nut here, the lock nut, right, and you just spin out the center a little bit, and keeping the center stable, you just tighten the lock nut up. 99 out of 100 times you can just use your fingernail to hold the center stable while you tighten it up. And I loosen them, especially for an unknown engine like this, until they are rappy-tappy loose. The other thing to notice while you're turning it over, make sure they're opening and closing and all that other kind of stuff. Everything is moving normal. Anyway, so that's all done, and the compression, it appears as if the compression has gone really hasn't moved much. Maybe it's come up a couple of pounds, less than 5. So the next trick is oil in the cylinder. If this thing sat for a while, sometimes the dry compression goes down, especially if the rings aren't in great shape. And it did come up a couple of PSI, which makes me wonder if it's not pumping oil throughout itself, which isn't improving it a little. Anyway, let's give it a couple of squirts and then take a look at it. I loosened up both valves, really didn't help. So now it's got some oil in it. And it improved. It sounds correct, so to speak. So I think I'm going to smash a carburetor onto it and see if we can't get it to start. Okay, we're coming to the last few steps. These two wires, the blue and the black with the white stripe, these actually go to the pulse generator. And you can see this is crispy, that's crispy, that's crispy, and you got some wiring here that's crispy. At some point, this must have caught fire. You also see these little nips out of the wire. I've seen that in a few places, right? They got splices going on here. Obviously, somebody spent some time troubleshooting this. The engine's burned up. The engine, you could see some soot and so forth. And a lot of times when you see like that kind of patina, a lot of times it's been in a fire. So this kind of is a little burned up, but I think we'll be able to do something to it. I did put my meter on the pulse generator. Right, it's on the 2000 ohm scale, and you can see 470 ohms. That's about where it should be. So next thing up, I already put the carb on here. You can see I can't do anything with the throttle, unfortunately, because I gotta notch this out. I'm gonna wait. I just turned the idle up a little bit. I'm going to put the portable CDI box on it, and hopefully this thing starts right up. Okay, let's see if we have spark. Looks like we have plenty of spark. Let's smash this thing together and see if we can't get it to start up. Okay, let's give it a shot. I put some gas into the carburetor. Starting fluid. Throttle here. Power on. I don't know if you guys were able to see it. It was smoking out of the carburetor, and I kind of gave it a little sniff. It's like burning but belching out of the carburetor, which to me means it jumped time. That unfortunately could be kind of the end of this thing. Time to check the timing, and we'll see what happens after that. Okay, let's talk timing. If you take a quick look right through there, you see the T and the little line that lines up with that notch, right? This is at top dead center. And remember, this is the crank, so your piston is all the way up. And if you look here, let me make sure I show it to you. In the back there, you should see the word top. Okay, maybe that's helping. Maybe it's making it worse. There you go. See the word top, and you see the way the line lines up, and it says KZ200, KZ250R, and it's timed beautifully for those. The only problem is it's not timed for the LF300. So somebody had this apart and timed it up, and the timing chain looks nice and tight. So what's next? What's next is I gotta get the starter cover off, and I gotta loosen up the valves completely. I gotta get the timing adjuster out of there, the timing chain adjuster, and I kind of have to hop around the position on the wheel as I spin it around. This thing should be kind of jacked up, and on that's two wheels should be jacked up, those two, and it should kind of be tilted up a little bit, and I think we could adjust the timing. I'm hoping that the valves didn't get hit. I'm really hoping that, because if it did, I paid a lot of money for a parts bike. Not too much money, but a lot of money. More than I like to pay for a parts bike. The cylinder head on these things is kind of expensive. So anyway, we will time this up and take care of that on the next one. Hopefully she starts up and runs and does everything it's supposed to. So do remember, I have $350 invested in this thing. And remember, I pulled the string. It seemed to have some compression. So it's a little bit hard to tell what you're buying, right? I mean, you don't know if you get something great or getting something less than good. The good thing about this is there's at $375, I do have a little bit of headroom, right? Not a crazy amount of headroom, but a little bit of headroom. I probably have, what is it, about 1 o'clock? Yeah, that's about an hour off. That's an hour slow. So it's about 1 o'clock. So I have about 2-3 hours into it so far. If somebody's trying to figure out shop time or how quickly they work compared to how quickly I work. I'm a little surprised that somebody was in there timing this engine, because I think those are OEM tires. I think they're the original, what are they, Dunlops? Yeah, they're the original Dunlops. So I'm really surprised that it has enough miles on it where somebody's already had to put a chain into it. And it doesn't look like it was beat up on. So yeah, I'm not sure why somebody would have had it apart and put a timing chain into it. What they did wrong here, very common, and you guys might say, oh, just rotate it around, you'll find yourself in the right place. No, I rotated around so that the LF300, KLF300 symbol was lined up properly here, right? And I was not at top dead center. So I just hope that the valve didn't get smashed up, especially when they're off just slightly or just a tiny little bit. That's really when they get nailed. Okay, let's Let's hope for the best. The first time I put oil into the cylinder, I got the compression up to 90 psi, 95 psi. So I'm kind of hoping the valves are good, and I'm hoping this is savable. This is a nice, rock solid utility machine. More utility than sport because it's heavy, but it's a rock solid machine. Like, you know, look how much metal is in the frame. So I'd really like to save it. Okay, that's it for this video. I really want to thank you all for dropping by to watch and comment and subscribe. Please remember to keep your feet down, keep your heads up, and get out there and enjoy each and every day. Go buy an all-terrain vehicle. You might just be able to save it. Bye now.